Hi to all you patronisers of the Generally Spooky History podcast. I'm Aaron, Eilidh and Kieran's third wheel of the past decade. They've wrote me, where's that script, Eilidh? I'm willingly and without monetary compensation here to tell you that you should definitely join the Generally Spooky History Patreon. Is that right? Okay. As I myself definitely do. It's great. I guess, probably. They blether, they read a book, they basically want us to pay for what they do every day of their lives anyway, which is actually a bit of a cheek now, come to think of it. But since the Generally Spooky History podcast is the greatest podcast of all time, you probably shouldn't miss out on all the bonus content they pour their hearts and souls into. Go on, they'll cry otherwise, and quite frankly, I just don't want to hear that.
Hey everyone, I'm Laura.
And I'm Jill.
And we are the hosts of Crime Divers podcast. We are Scottish sisters who tell each other true crime cases the other hasn't heard of.
New episodes are released every Tuesday and you can find us on your favourite podcast platform.
So what are you waiting for? Grab your wetsuit and join us as we dive into the world of true crime.
But remember, watch out for those sharks.
Hello again, everybody.
Hello, everybody.
Welcome back to the Generally Spooky History podcast, the home of the grisly tales. And fucked it. Why do I always
We do
that?
the deep dive into Scotland's history, myths, and legends. We do it every week. Kieran does it every week.
Yep.
That might surprise you, but he does it every week.
Just have a reputation to uphold over here.
Apparently. You dug this hole for yourself.
I did. That's my wonderful wife and co-host, Eilidh. She will be telling us the story today.
Oh, you want me to? That's Kieran.
This much is true.
Kieran is my wonderful husband. And he's sitting right over there.
And I get to listen to the story, same as you today. You at home, not you, Eilidh.
Oh, I know the story.
Well,
I never listen to the episodes back, so I never get to hear the story.
I get that pleasure.
Well, a little bit of housekeeping. I spoke to Scott from Carmichael Clan Radio last week.
Mm-hmm.
By the time you're hearing this, it's been out for a few days. Go over and check him out. You can find him on Spotify. I think he's on every podcast platform. Go check him out and listen to our chat. We chatted about Scottish folklore, Scottish history. We talked a little bit about the Black Lady of Lark Hall. So if you like that episode, you're probably going to like our chat.
I listened to it. It was excellent. Eilidh did a wonderful job.
I have not listened to it because I just can't. I can't hear myself. I had to bully Kieran into listening to it for me to make sure I didn't sound like an idiot.
I wouldn't say you had to bully me. I wanted to listen to it. Yes, that's very exciting. You should go check it out. My one point of housekeeping is apparently the river, it's pronounced Eithin.
Oh yeah, and someone reached out on Patreon.
Yes. Thank you, Grant, for clarifying that.
Yeah, thanks, Grant. That was very, very helpful.
Yes, because I can't remember how much we left in, but we sat here for a while trying to decide how to pronounce it.
We always do, and I always land on the wrong one.
Yep.
Every time.
So maybe we need to pick the one you've decided on, and then pick a different one.
Yeah, maybe that's the way.
That's the key. Well, we're ready for part 2 today.
Yes, we've had a bit of a break between recording. It's been a few days, so I've lost my flow a little bit. I need to find it again.
Ease back in. And if this is you just joining us, you should probably go listen to part 1 first.
Yeah, I mean, we're not your mother, so live your life. Listen to what you want. But this will probably make a bit more sense if you listen to our first part of Fyvie Castle.
Yes.
Because this is part 2.
Duh.
That was terrible.
Yeah, that was brutal. Do you want me to try and do a recap of the last episode?
I would love it if you tried to do a recap of the last episode, Kieran, because we're not doing any of the spooky season videos anymore. It's November. They're done. So I'm having withdrawal. I need more.
You need more. Well, I hope I have more than 60 seconds, but fair enough if I don't. Well, we're talking about Fyvie Castle, which is in...
That's an excellent start. I'm proud of you.
Thank you. Which is in Aberdeenshire. It was the site of a crannog before it was the castle as it's known today, I believe. And And it's been, I remember you saying it was a strange one because it often goes into a family and then back to the king and then given to a different family because it has 5 towers, each named after a different family. There was a squint, is that right?
No, I was organising your sentence in my brain. I think I know what you mean.
Okay.
I had to file it away in the right places, I think. I think it's made its way in there.
Okay.
All right.
Okay, good. And I remember there being the 2 main stories. There was the one that could have been in the Glamis Castle episode about the man who falls in love with the king's daughter, niece? I think daughter. And there's an awesome love story there. And then there was the spooky part, which was about the 3 cursed stones, supposedly left there by Thomas the Rhymer. Or not left there, it was his curse that was put onto Fyvie Castle. And I believe we were going to talk a little more about what that curse might mean.
Well, we talked about that last time.
I thought it was going to come up again, perhaps not.
I think it is going to come up again, but we did talk about what some of the theories might be last time. So, if you haven't listened and you want more than that recap, you should probably go listen to the episode.
Yeah.
Is all I'm going to say.
Was that
solid? You
solid?
Did a great job.
Thank you. I think that sums up where we were, what we did.
Mm-hmm.
All the key figures. Can't remember anyone's name, apart from Thomas the Rhymer.
Obviously.
But
could you name the 5 towers?
Preston Tower. Is that one?
Mm-hmm.
That's it.
So, no was the answer to that question.
But I believe we were talking about the Prestons.
Yes, I think we left things with the Prestons last time.
James Preston.
Henry Preston.
Took a shot. So
yeah, we left things with Henry Preston. He is considered the one who had the castle when Thomas the Rhymer came to town.
Mm-hmm.
So the curse happened on his watch because the gates were shut.
Yep. After being open for 7 years.
7 years and a day.
Oh, so close.
Because it's a legend, Kieran.
Oh, that's true. There's rules, aren't there?
Mm-hmm. There's certain ways you have to say things. So 7 years and a day.
Yep. Because it wouldn't be any fun if it was open for 4 years, 8 months and 6 days, wouldn't it?
No, not really.
Nothing poetic about that.
That'd be very Neil Gaiman.
Oh, yeah.
Or Terry Pratchett.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and I believe it was around 1402 when we left off.
Yeah, Preston's deal to take on Fyvie Castle was all settled up by around 1402. A few years after James Lindsay died.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So, in 1433, Henry Preston died.
Cool.
So he had Fyvie Castle for about 30 years, give or take. But when he died, he didn't have a male heir. And we all know that you must have a penis to get anything done. So, problems.
Yes, that is the prime requisite.
Fyvie Castle and the estate went to his younger daughter because he had 2.
Okay.
Except, not really, because it went to her husband.
Oh, yes.
Who was called Alexander Meldrum.
That sounds familiar.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
Now that I've said it.
Now that you've said it, that sounds familiar.
Alexander Meldrum. A lot of the information that I have on the Meldrums I'm about to share with you came from Sue Coburn's book, which I talked about last time.
Yes.
I'm going to get the exact name because I can't remember. So Sue Coburn's book is Fyvie Castle, its lairds and their times, a history of the 5 families who lived in this castle in its 800-year history.
Very nice.
The Meldrums were already a wealthy family, so they just became even more wealthy with the acquisition of Fyvie when Henry died.
Yep.
Alexander had Meldrum Tower built around 1440, so that's the second of our 5 towers of Fyvie.
Yes.
It has now been built.
Preston Tower, Meldrum Tower.
Mm-hmm. The castle passed to Alexander's son when he died, and then it was passed to his grandson after that, George Meldrum.
Okay.
In 1502. And this part is contrary to one of the theories about Thomas the Rhymer's curse, by the way.
Oh, yeah?
Because it passed from father to son over 3 generations.
Oh, yes, I remember. Because that was the thought, wasn't it? That they'll never have an heir.
Mm-hmm. Well, no, they will, but the castle will never pass directly from father to son. So sometimes the son might die. Or the son will die and it'll pass to the grandson.
Mm-hmm. I see. Oh, well, that's been disproved almost straight off the bat, eh?
But we'll come back later to when that seems to be more prevalent.
Okay.
George was very important in Scottish political circles. He was one of the men that travelled down to England to negotiate the marriage of a certain Mary, Queen of Scots.
Oh, wow.
To a certain Prince Edward of England.
They ring a bell. I think I've heard of them before.
You think?
Mm-hmm. Seems familiar.
George had to try and come to an agreement with Henry VIII, which was famously difficult to do.
Not an easy man to get along with, by all accounts.
No, that was the task that he had been set.
Yeah. I'm sure it was a very prestigious, job to take on. Not one I would want, though. Not an easy task.
George and his wife had 3 sons, but their eldest had some kind of health condition that meant that he couldn't take on the responsibilities of Fyvie.
Okay.
It's not clear what he suffered from because the people at the time didn't know.
Mm-hmm.
Sue Coburn suggested epilepsy.
Oh, wow.
Because he would take these attacks. I think in her book she says around once a month. He would take these attacks where he just became nonsensical and he couldn't look after himself.
Wow.
He couldn't do anything for himself. But they were unpredictable, so you never knew when they were going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
So I can see why you would take that to be epilepsy.
Yeah. There's sense there. I can't imagine trying to deal with something like that when you can't even, give it a name.
Mm-hmm.
There's no understanding of what it might be. So to try and, because it'd be hard enough to deal with, in today, when there's, medication and support and understanding. So to just have it back then would have been awful.
Well, I think that's why there were so many links between religion and medicine. That this must be otherworldly because we have no idea what would cause a person to do this.
Yeah. You would look to unseen forces, wouldn't you?
And looking at it going, there's no earthly cure for that.
Mm-hmm. Better try prayer.
In 1511, George's eldest son, the one who was having these attacks, he gave up his inheritance of Fyvie. He was still receiving allowance so that he could live comfortably and he would always be provided for. But I think they all kind of knew that he couldn't handle Fyvie because there were times he couldn't look after himself. So when the time came, it was George's second son, William Meldrum, who inherited the place.
Interesting.
I'm kind of giving you the whistle-stop tour here because I want to focus on the exciting stuff. William had a son called George, so named after his grandfather.
Yep.
He was in line to the Fyvie fortune. Now, in my script you might not remember, but you mentioned it in your recap.
Oh.
That it was common for land and property to be taken back by the crown when the owner died, so they could decide to give it back to that person's heir.
Yes.
So I've made a note here to remind us, because it had been a while, but you've already done that.
You're welcome, listeners at home. I'm as surprised as you are.
So this is now relevant again. Keep that in mind.
Cool.
George, this second George, was not good with money.
Oh, that's going to lead to disaster, isn't it?
He was constantly swamped with debt. He always owed someone something.
Oh.
And it plagued him his whole life. This was a problem that he never got over, never learned to deal with. Fyvie ended up being heavily mortgaged because of George. And eventually he decided that he was going to give the lands of Fyvie over to his cousin, Andrew Meldrum. So he was going to keep the castle, but he was going to hand over the land so that he could get some money for it.
Yep. Oh, that's tough because then the land's what you make money from. You make money from owning land. You don't make money from owning a castle.
Exactly. However, there was another reason that this was a bad idea. Not just because that's what you make money from.
Yep.
He didn't get permission first.
Ooh. Uh-oh.
He didn't go to the king, who I believe was King James V at this point.
Oh, okay.
I think. But I may have that wrong. This was a big no-no because James was pissed.
Yeah.
It should have gone through him because he's the one that gets to decide this kind of thing, not George.
Yep.
So it was decided, once this all came out and everyone's annoyed about it, that George was at fault and he retained responsibility for the lands at Fyvie. But because Andrew had done everything right, he wasn't at fault. He had just taken on this land. Andrew got to keep them.
Oh, damn. That's a good deal for Andrew, isn't it?
So from what I can tell, George had to foot the bill for the land with no way of making the money to do it because he's handed it over to Andrew.
Ooh. God, that's a fuck up and a half, isn't it?
Right?
Makes sense because this Andrew guy would have assumed,
Well, yeah.
If it's up for sale, you assume it's allowed to be up for sale. You wouldn't think to do due diligence to check that they're selling it properly.
Well, it's tricky because he handed over the land. So I don't know if he was hoping, because I know I kind of said it offhand earlier that he sold it. I'm not sure if he sold it or if he was hoping to put them in Andrew's name. Maybe to get round some kind of a debt that he owed.
Yep.
I'm not entirely sure.
Okay.
But it sounds like a pretty impossible situation.
Yeah.
Not where you want to be.
No.
To make matters worse, George's brother was raising hell with their neighbours while George was away in France.
Oh, no.
His brother William killed one of the Barclays that lived next door.
That's not good.
No, when they clashed in Edinburgh. They met when they were in the city. And he killed him in a fight. And this resulted in a blood money debt that had to be paid.
Oh, no.
Which was quite common. That would be a way to resolve a feud so that it didn't devolve into a long-standing clan feud. You would settle up with compensation. So that they didn't back and forth kill each other.
Yes. Oh, man. I once read somewhere that, about what's it like being rich. And one of the things was you can park anywhere because you have enough money that if you get parking tickets, you can just pay them and it doesn't matter. So you just park anywhere and then just pay off any debts you accrue. So you kind of can go slightly above the law with that. This is like a mega version of that. If you have enough money, I'll just kill someone and then pay off the blood debt and then it'll be fine.
It's weird, isn't it?
It is weird.
This isn't good for George because he's already up to his eyeballs in debt and now the Barclays want to be compensated because his brother killed one of them.
Yep. Valid.
So they were given some of the land at Fyvie to make up for the loss. Because
he
has no money.
Oh, does that mean he's given it to two different people?
Well, kind of. It meant that Andrew Meldrum was then pursued by the Barclays because they didn't get the land they were due.
Oh.
It's this whole circle of blame and responsibility that doesn't make any sense. And it took me quite a long time to write this section of the script because it was really confusing.
Yeah, I bet.
Following who had what and who was owed this and who did that. So now Andrew's involved because he owns the land. They've gone to him. But George is the one who's promised them the land but on account of his brother.
Yes. Oh, madness. This guy sounds like an arsehole.
Right? And yeah, George has no money, so he can't do anything about it. It's all landing at Andrew's door.
Yep. Listen, he's far too rich to just get a job, earn some money to sell this.
Right.
To pay off his debts.
But now, because Andrew has this outstanding debt that he has to pay, none of the Meldrums can pay their bills.
Oh.
Now they're all in debt.
Whoa. I think I see the only solution to this.
Do you see where I'm going?
Yep.
Do you see why I've gone into this so far?
Yep.
George had even married well. He married Marie Fleming, who was one of the 4 Marys that served Mary, Queen of Scots.
Oh, wow.
I think we talked about them when we did our episode. And she had 4 ladies in waiting who were all called Mary. And she was a famed beauty. She came from a very powerful family. She'd even been married before George, and her first husband was her great love. He was punching above his weight with Marie, and she absolutely settled for him.
That's a shame.
So what was left for the Meldrums to try?
Now, are you asking or are you setting
You can make
up?
a guess if you want. It's setting up in my script, but I'm always happy for you to make a guess.
Yeah, I'll throw in a guess here. I think he's going to turn to gambling because he's an idiot. That's what I think.
Okay, fair.
Based
on everything you know so far, I don't think that's outrageous.
He's going to take his 100 grand, put it on 36 black, and turn it into 3.6 million. That's his plan.
Well, thankfully, he didn't try anything so foolhardy.
Okay.
But this was probably a bigger dash to his pride than losing at gambling would have been. They had to sell up Fyvie. It was the only thing left to them to do. It was their only asset they had left, really.
Yeah. Ooh, that's tough.
So it didn't go well for them.
No. Did he perhaps sell it back to the crown?
No, he didn't, actually. He sold it to the Setons.
I believe they also have a tower.
Now that I've said it.
Now that you've said it. In that leading tone of voice.
Interesting how that tends to happen, eh? Such a good memory.
Such a genius over here. Well, they must be Seton pretty. With their new castle.
No, I got the joke. I'm just letting you sit in it.
Oh, thank you.
It seems like a legacy of debt and woe isn't all that the Meldrums left behind at Fyvie, though.
Oh,
Because we're getting spooky right out the gate.
we're already getting spooky?
Mhm.
Oh my god.
I told you this place is stuffed to the gills with ghosts and curses and murder.
I know that's what you said, but we're like 20 minutes in. Oh, this has never happened before. I'm in shock. I'm reeling.
Do you want a minute?
I think so. Just a minute to gather myself. Okay, on behalf of the listeners, we're ready to hear some spooks.
Okay. I said it earlier, but Alexander Meldrum built the Meldrum Tower. And he was the first Meldrum to live at Fyvie.
Mm-hmm.
But this tower isn't just your standard castle tower. Because this tower has a secret cursed chamber.
Oh, more curses.
Yeah.
So many questions.
And this is separate from the curse of the Weeping Stones.
Oh, so now. Did he build a cursed chamber into it? Or did he build a secret chamber that then became cursed? Did they just build it wrong with an accidental chamber they forgot to put a door on? So many questions.
Well, it's kind of confusing because he had the tower built, but at the bottom of Meldrum Tower, and this is true, this chamber exists because they've scanned and searched the castle. There's a sealed windowless chamber at the bottom. And I think from everything that I read and everything I researched, I think it was built originally for use as a dungeon.
Oh, yeah.
Because this is the 1500s. But over time, a curse has become associated with this chamber that's kept most of all the Fyvie lairds out of it, and they won't touch it.
Ooh.
So that's what the thinking is.
Yeah, okay.
But he didn't write down anywhere, this is my plan for this cursed sealed chamber.
Yeah, there was no I need one master bedroom, an ensuite, 3 extra bedrooms, and a cursed chamber.
I thought you were going to write, list the recipe for the curse. Not the tower. I need Eye of Newt.
That's what I was going to say.
Really big padlock. Need a trap door.
3 hairs from a virgin goat.
Yeah, you get it.
I get it.
So, if a laird attempted or attempts to break into the sealed chamber, the curse said that, quote, the laird of that day would die and his lady would go blind of her eye.
Ooh.
Unquote.
I mean, that is a bad enough consequence not to try.
Right?
So I get that. And it rhymes, so it fits the, curse expectation.
Well, it's obviously true.
Yeah.
Obviously.
This
is all I'm going to say about this cursed chamber for now.
Oh, what?
I just want to bring it up here because this is when it was supposedly built.
I see.
But it's going to become relevant again later.
Okay.
And not in a good way.
Ooh. Uh-oh.
So just bear in mind, we're going to talk about the castle,
yeah.
and there's this cursed chamber sitting right in the middle of it.
Right in the middle.
You have to let me know if you're enjoying getting these little, spook injections all the way through.
That is how it feels. Just a little bit of spook to spice things up. So these towers, I'm imagining each one as a very, cylindrical, Rapunzel-esque tower.
Not really, no. Because remember, I said the castle has a kind of French chateau look about it.
Oh, yes.
I'll just get you a picture. They're honestly, they are kind of rounded, but they're more square than circular.
Yeah, cool. Worth Googling Fyvie Castle at home. Oh, I see. But it is individual towers, though, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
They're just...
We're going to talk about what the Seatons built, and they built the part in the centre, which is different.
I see.
Because there's 5, so
Yep.
there's not 5 corners.
I did wonder if it was going to be a pentagram.
No. Do you mean a pentagon?
I do mean a pentagon, yes.
Yeah, so we're going to get to that. I'll explain it. But there's these really big towers on each of the 4 corners.
Yeah, cool.
But they're not circular and they're not overly taller than the rest of the building.
Yeah.
So, back to Fyvie history.
Ooh.
Kieran actually shivered there. And we're with the Seatons now.
Yes.
Specifically, Alexander Seaton.
Alexander Seaton.
Now, you'll know that name if you have a better memory than Kieran. Because that was the name of the cursed baronet from our episode on the Egyptian mummy curse.
Oh,
His name was Alexander Seton.
that's a funny coincidence.
Now, I did check it out to see if there's a link between the two families. Basically, I think they're related somewhere down the line, but there's quite a few different branches of Setons. So I couldn't find the direct line between them.
Yeah.
They have the same surname. There will be a link somewhere. I just couldn't make it for this episode.
That's fair.
Alexander Seton took ownership of Fyvie in 1596.
Okay, so we've moved on a fair bit.
And in 1599, he built Seton Tower,
I see.
which is the tower that's in the centre of the castle.
Oh.
It's very grand. This is the third of our 5 towers of Fyvie. We're getting there. And in this tower, it looks incredible. I'll get a photo for you at some point, Kieran, but there's this huge turnpike staircase in the Seton Tower in Fyvie.
Wow.
They're usually narrow. We talked about them in our Jedburgh episode.
Yes, I believe so.
So they're spiraling and they're usually quite tight because they're good for defense. This one is about 10 feet wide.
Wow.
So it is very, very grand looking
Oh,
as it spirals up.
that's making a statement, isn't it?
Right? Now, believe it or not, I read that Mary, Queen of Scots, was Alexander Seton's godmother.
Holy shit. I mean, that would then fit the wealth and status associated with a giant staircase.
Right? He's been able to buy this castle.
Yep. As weird as that is to say.
Oh, the construction would have been mega.
Yeah,
Especially
definitely.
because it's right in the middle of the bloody thing.
And it seems so early for that kind of thing. Because if it's 1599,
Yeah, that's when it was built.
you still need to defend your castle. It's still liable to get sieged.
Mm-hmm.
So, fair play.
Right?
Yep.
Alexander Seton would also go on to become the first Earl of Dunfermline.
Okay.
So, again, another clue to his status.
Yeah.
And the kind of wealth that we're talking here. He went on to serve King James VI, who was Mary, Queen of Scots' son.
Boo.
He served in his parliament when James VI became King of England. So when he was king of both.
Yep.
And Alexander was actually trusted to raise and tutor both of James's sons.
This is an important guy.
Henry and then Charles, who went on to become king.
God damn.
So that's mega.
Yeah.
The young princes were living with Alexander and they spent time at Fyvie.
This is clearly some guy.
Right? Alexander also helped prevent hostilities arising between Scotland and England. When it seemed like Queen Elizabeth wasn't long for this world, James, the king, started worrying that moves would be made by people in her court and her parliament to keep him from ever sitting on the English throne.
Oh, yeah.
Because he was set to inherit. That's the understanding everyone had.
Uh-huh.
But he thought they were going to split the dummy because they didn't want a Scottish king.
That's not unreasonable.
So he was worrying that they were going to use this period where Elizabeth was deathly ill to ensure that he would inherit. And he decided that his way of getting around this was to just invade England.
Ooh. So, pre-retaliation.
Yeah. He was going to make them give him the English crown when Elizabeth died by invading.
That's coming in strong. I say not the best plan. That's only because I know how it did go.
Yeah.
In which that wasn't required. Was Alexander Seton the voice of reason in this?
Yeah, he managed to talk him down from that plan, even though there were lots of other Scottish nobles who thought this was a good idea. There was a lot of support for it in Parliament, but he was one of the ones that just knew that this wouldn't have ended well because of the scale of England's army and their force at the time. He knew that if Scotland invaded, it was a very, very bad idea.
Very bad idea.
So yeah, he managed to talk James down, and this invasion of England, as we know, never happened.
Good guy. Yeah, I'm not sure how it was then, but today England's population is about 10 times the size of Scotland. So because of the size of London, I guess it might have been a bit closer back then, but it's still a lot bigger, size-wise.
I imagine it still would have been bigger.
Yeah. So, a tough battle to win.
Mm-hmm. However, none of these impressive things are what Alexander Seton is known for in relation to Fyvie Castle.
Mm-hmm.
Alexander Seton is known for who he married.
Oh.
Because he married Lilias Drummond.
Lilias Drummond. Is there a Drummond Tower?
No.
No, I'm thinking Meldrum. That's what's happened there.
We've already talked about them.
Yeah.
If you've ever looked into Fyvie Castle or come across it by chance, you've definitely heard of Lilias Drummond. But there's lots of conflicting information out there about her, so we're going to get into it now.
Sounds good.
Alexander married Lilias in 1592. And one thing I thought was nice was that her name was often written as Lilies rather than Lilias,
Cute.
which I just think is nice.
That is nice.
Over the 9 years that Alexander and Lilias were married, she gave birth to 5 daughters, but no sons.
Uh-oh.
So no heirs born to Alexander.
She had one job.
Yeah, one thing. That's all women are good for, apparently.
Making men.
Ugh. Sadly, Lilias died when she was fairly young. I can't be sure, but it looks like she was born around 1580. So she was only about 21 when she died in 1601.
Okay.
So she's 21 and she's had 5 children.
Ugh. I mean, I'd be ready to clock out at that point too.
Yeah. So obviously she got married when she was very young.
Yes.
She left behind 5 daughters too, who now don't have a mother, who are all very young children.
Yep.
Alexander is left a widower, but not for long.
Oh.
That same year, Alexander remarried.
The same year?
He remarried a woman called Griselle Leslie.
Griselle. Lilias and Griselle.
Mm-hmm.
Really good names.
Right? But yeah, your immediate reaction there is why you can see, or is how you can see why rumours started to circle about Alexander.
Definitely.
Because he moved on awfully quickly.
Yeah. To the mother of his 5, from the mother of his 5 daughters.
Mm-hmm. To remarry that same year.
Not good.
Some people believe that Alexander fell in love with Griselle while Lilias was still alive, and so took advantage of his young wife's death to move on with the other woman that he already had feelings for.
Yeah.
But some rumours circled that Alexander did something far worse than just have a wandering eye.
Oh no. Was he doing the dirty with someone else? Was he having children with somebody else?
Just building the tension. Lilias hadn't produced an heir for Alexander.
Uh-huh.
The most important thing above all.
Yes.
And some legends suggest that he had gotten fed up and he'd run out of patience with Lilias. So some stories say that Lilias was locked in one of the rooms of Fyvie and left there to starve until she died.
Oh no. That is taking it a step further.
So people think that he bumped Lilias off so that he could move on with Griselle to get the male heir that he wanted.
Yep. Ew.
Which would be gnarly.
That would be gnarly. Did he perchance lock her in a bottom sealed off room of the tower?
No, he didn't.
Oh. I was so clever. I was so sure.
That was a good guess.
Yep.
Now, there is evidence to suggest, at the very least, Alexander didn't murder Lilias.
Good.
I've looked into it, because I said there's a lot of conflicting information. Lots of rumours were going about that he did this, but evidence suggests that she didn't die at Fyvie.
Oh.
She died at Dalgetty, which is in Fife.
Oh, that's interesting.
So she couldn't have died locked away in a room of the castle.
Uh-huh.
So I want to try and debunk that here, because I don't think that's true. It's just something that went around.
Interesting.
However, there is another part to this legend, which has more evidence to suggest that it actually happened.
Oh, God. Uh-oh.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Something very, very creepy apparently happened on Alexander and Griselle's wedding night, which would have been pretty hard for the pair to get over.
Ooh, did they get haunted on their wedding night? Oh, no. That's going to make consummating the marriage tricky, isn't it?
Yeah. So they got married on October 27th, 1601. And were spending their wedding night in Fyvie itself.
Yep.
In a room above the charter room, which is the room that has the weeping stone in it now.
Ooh, okay.
So they're above that room.
Uh-huh.
As the newlyweds settled into sleep, they started hearing strange noises outside the window to their room.
That's not good.
And they're not on the ground floor either.
No, they're at least on this first story.
It sounded like sighing, apparently, but some reports even say that they heard screaming, crying.
Oh, God.
From immediately outside their bedroom window.
It's going to put a dampener on the mood.
But whenever they looked, there was nothing there.
Eh.
So eventually they managed to actually get to sleep. But it's what they discovered the next morning that really, really rattled them far more than what they heard the night before.
Oh, God.
When they checked outside the window, like trying to see what could have made that noise, like whether there was something like squeaking or something broken on the exterior of the castle, they looked down at the windowsill to their window.
Yep.
The stone windowsill.
Oh, yeah.
And Lilius's name was carved there.
Oh, God. Oh. Well, that's awful.
And it's still there.
Still there.
It's carved into the windowsill, Lilius Drummond. And that room is now called the Drummond Room.
How could it be called anything else?
And because of the angle of it, I was looking at photos and I was reading about people who've seen it. Because of the angle of it, it would have been very difficult to carve from inside the room.
Oh, creepy.
So it would have had to have been from the outside.
Oh, no. So how did their air making go? Because that's a lasting block, isn't it?
We'll get there. I want to stay on this carving for a little bit longer.
Okay.
Just a little bit. Because there's a lot of theories about why it's there. Because it's actually there.
Yeah.
It's something different.
That's wild.
One theory is that the carving was done as a way to honour Lilius, possibly after her death. But it's in a really obscure spot. It's not easy to see.
No.
So you think if you're going to honour someone, you would put it on like the outside facing bits of the castle.
I would have thought so. Or like the stone above a doorway.
Yeah, something that you're going to look at all the time.
Yeah.
This is not what this windowsill is. Like, it is still on the exterior of the castle, but you get what I'm saying.
Yeah.
One theory is that it was carved by a stonemason who really admired her. So he didn't really want it to be too obvious. He just wanted to have it there.
Do a little something.
But he didn't want to get in trouble.
That's quite a nice theory. It's like a stone carver's version of like writing someone's name in a notebook with love hearts and stuff.
Like it is there, but he didn't want to get found out.
Yeah.
So he carved it there.
Fair.
But people really don't know what to make of it.
Well, it's so random. Oh, I'd love to have gone to see that in person.
We're going to have to go.
Yes, absolutely.
We're going to get to the end of this whole episode. You're going to be dying to visit.
Yeah.
I just know. So we have this carving that you can really go see.
Uh-huh.
But that's not all.
It keeps going?
We're still on Lilius.
Oh. Okay, hit me.
Since Lilius's death, many, many, many people have reported seeing the Green Lady of Fyvie Castle.
There you go.
We're going to talk about her more later, but the Green Lady is supposedly Lilius, unhappy at how she was treated by her husband, unhappy that he moved on so quickly. And she's seen all around the castle dressed in a beautiful green gown with pearls around her neck and in her hair. But some people believe that if it is Lilius, she isn't wandering Fyvie because she was murdered. She's wandering because this was the home that she loved.
Oh, yeah.
And she doesn't want to leave.
Uh-huh.
Because it doesn't seem like she was murdered, but it's one of those lingering legends.
Yeah.
However, she supposedly looks so solid when people do see her that they move out of her way on stairs and in hallways because they don't want to walk into her, thinking she's a real person.
I always love those interactions. There was a very similar one we talked about in the Stirling Castle episode, where people talk to somebody as if they're like a tour guide who works there, and then they walk through a wall or something. I love hearing about that level of corporealness, I guess.
That or just something looking so ordinary that you don't react.
Yeah, until something very unordinary happens. Ew.
But other people who've encountered her have reported seeing her glowing.
That would be a sight.
Glowing green.
Oh, I would love to see that.
Mm-hmm. The sight of her is supposed to be an omen that bad things are coming for whoever owns Fyvie.
Okay.
At the time that she's seen. Interesting that it's another female omen of doom.
Yeah.
We've come across that a lot.
That is quite interesting. It's funny because we had a green lady in Crathis.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. We're going to talk about the Green Lady of Fyvie again because she reappears later in the history. But this is supposedly her origin story.
Yep.
Is with Lilias Drummond.
Oh, love it. Why is that stone there, though?
I've seen photos of it. It's really weird.
Creepy.
Mm-hmm.
Creepy.
Now, there's another spooky story that's kind of interwoven with Lilias's story.
Uh-huh.
But it doesn't seem to have actually been about her. The two have just been linked because these two stories exist in the same place, so they get confused over time.
I mean, that's fair.
So I'm going to circle round, but just in case you already know something about Fyvie history, I am coming back around to it.
Yep.
Don't worry. So Alexander married Griselle in 1601, the same year that Lilias died.
Uh-huh.
And then Griselle died in 1606.
Oh, that's a shame.
Mm-hmm. Now, the next part is gnarly, just as a heads up. If you want to skip ahead a couple minutes, you can.
Do we need some sort of specific content warning? Just a bit grim.
Alexander gets married again, and to me, it's very problematic.
Cool.
Just, if you want to skip it, you can. He got married for a third time in 1607.
Again, quite soon.
Mm-hmm. To Margaret Hay.
Oh, yep.
Alexander was 52. Margaret was 15.
Oh, God. Yep, that's problematic, isn't it?
Yeah. All of his wives were very, very young.
Yeah.
Margaret was only 1 year older than her eldest stepdaughter.
Oh.
Absolutely fucked.
My face has lived in this position now.
Like, I hate it. It's awful.
Oh, God.
But I didn't want to just step over it because I'm like, no, that's a really shitty thing to do. Like,
yep.
I'm not going to hide it for you. Yeah, but he had very young wives, and Margaret was only 15.
Oh, God, that's gross.
Right?
Ugh.
Alexander died in 1622.
Okay.
So he's dead and gone. Loved by all, apparently. He had a glowing reputation. But this, to me, like, the way that he took his wives, he's a dickhead.
Yeah.
Don't like it. I even know that it was, like, socially acceptable, blah, blah. I still hate it.
Yep. I was thinking the same thing.
So Fyvie was passed down to Alexander's son, Charles. He finally got one.
Good.
From his marriage to Margaret, to his last wife.
Third time's a charm.
Charles seems to have been important politically and everything, and blah, 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 but he was just kind of dull, so we're not going to spend much time with him.
Yep.
He married into the Douglas family. He was a prolific gambler. Apparently, that was a real problem. That's all we really need to discuss.
Yeah.
Charles' son, Alexander, so named after his grandfather again, inherited when Charles died, but then Alexander died.
Oh, okay.
Charles's second son was killed in a, quote, sea fight with the Dutch, unquote, in 1672. I couldn't find any more information than that. So this is how Charles' third son ultimately became the one who inherited.
Interesting.
If you're with me.
I am with you. Yeah, I was going to say that earlier when your man who possibly had epilepsy forwent the inheritance.
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't happen very often that the first heir is still alive while a second heir actually inherits.
No, it is very rare. I think it was a bit dodgy because he was, this wasn't in my script because I didn't want to slow things down, but he was a minor when he gave up his rights to Fyvie.
Oh.
And he signed a contract that gave it over to his brother. And this was upheld even though he wasn't of age. So it wasn't legally binding.
That's a bit tricky, isn't it?
So it was a little bit dicey.
Uh-huh.
I don't really know how they got away, but because I had no answers as to how they got away with that, I didn't include it. But it did seem like a little bit of funny business.
Yeah.
Now, I think I'm going to save it for an extra episode over on Patreon because it's not strictly relevant to our story. But there's a famous ballad about a tragic love story that involves Alexander, who was Charles's eldest son.
Okay.
The first of the three.
Uh-huh.
It's called Tifty's Annie. I'm not going to get too into it. But it's basically Alexander got in the way of true love and messed everything up. There was a couple who were like star-crossed lovers supposed to be together, and he ruined it.
Oh no.
So put a pin in that. If you're interested, I'll make an extra episode about it.
That sounds interesting.
But what we need to know from this ballad is that one of the tragic lovers in the story, who wasn't Alexander,
Yep.
was apparently a trumpeter at Fyvie Castle.
Oh, I see.
And in the years since it all happened in the 1600s, people have reported hearing phantom trumpeting
Oh.
that they can't place because no one is playing the trumpet.
Oh, now that's interesting, because that's another very distinct sound. Because we have phantom bagpipes. It's Scotland. You get how that comes about.
Sometimes people are just playing bagpipes. You'd be surprised at how often you just hear it.
Yeah, and it carries on the wind. Like, you can hear it from far away.
What I thought was interesting was if you were hearing phantom pipes at Fyvie, there's a very, very good chance a wedding is happening at one of the many castles in the area.
So many castles.
And it's carrying.
Yeah.
Because they're so close together.
But a trumpet? Much more interesting.
More unusual, eh?
Yeah.
So yeah, people report hearing phantom trumpeting.
He's obviously just thought very, very highly of himself to come back and do that forever.
Say it.
Say what?
Say it.
What do you mean?
Say it.
I'm just saying that he obviously, I don't know if there's an expression for it, but he obviously thought very highly of himself.
Say it.
I don't know what you mean. He's just blowing his own bagpipes, you know?
Tooting his own horn. Tooting his own horn.
Eilidh shaking her head disapprovingly.
So, a little sidetrack, but back to our third son that inherited Fyvie. Does it still make sense?
Yep.
He was called James Seaton.
Mm-hmm.
James would be the last Seaton at Fyvie,
Mm-hmm.
as well as the last Earl of Dunfermline.
Mm.
The title was lost after James.
Ooh, okay.
Shit's about to go down.
I'm excited.
James had married into the great Gordon family, to the beautiful Lady Jean Gordon, because they're always beautiful.
Always.
Sue Coburn actually wrote a bit about Jean's parents that I want to read you now.
Okay.
It's just fun. While outlawed and in danger of his life, Lewis, Jean's father, had to seek refuge in a cave, and his food was brought to him by Mary Grant, the local laird's daughter.
Mm-hmm.
This lady, who was as fascinating as she was brave, soon won the fugitive's heart. Lewis seized a minister in the middle of the night and threatened the terrified man that he would pistol him, yea, draw him at one horse tail, if he refused to marry him instantly to the beautiful Mary Grant.
Wow.
The minister tried to escape and was dragged back by his hair with a pistol to his head. He was forced to perform the ceremony, marrying Lewis to Mary.
That is intense.
So they're Jean Gordon's parents.
Wow. I think that's a nice story.
See, I didn't know either.
Think that's quite romantic?
Not for the minister.
No.
It's just what everyone wants, isn't it? It's what fairy tales are made of.
Yes. That's why you become a minister, hoping to help make that happen.
I thought you'd want to know.
Yeah, absolutely.
So James married Jean, who was their daughter.
Yes.
James eventually lost favour with the king and with court because he picked the wrong side.
Oh, see, to stay in power for the ages, you've got to be a good side picker.
Mm-hmm. The Glorious Revolution happened in 1689. Do you remember what the Glorious Revolution was, Kieran?
Of 1689?
Mm-hmm.
Was that the first Jacobite Rising?
That happened in 1689. But why? But why was there a Jacobite Rising?
It was because a king got exiled to France and the Hanoverians took over.
Yeah, well done.
And it was Charles, King Charles, who had to go to France. Oh no, because it's Bonnie Prince Charles. Nah, should have stuck with it.
King James. James the 7th.
Wrong way round.
He was ousted. The British crown was handed over to William of Orange and Queen Mary.
Yes.
So that's why there was the Jacobite Rising.
I see.
And it's Jacobite because it's in support of James.
Oh.
Jacobus.
Jacobus. They don't want a bite of Jacob.
No.
Okay. Just checking.
So all of this happened in 1689, and our James Seaton, sided with the Stuarts.
And it's the Stuarts who were exiled.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was a poor move.
So James took part in the first Jacobite Rising in 1689.
Uh-huh. Well, there you go. All comes around. All circled back around.
He fought at the Battle of Killiecrankie, which is a battle that deserves its own episode.
Mm-hmm.
And even though Killiecrankie was a victory for the Jacobites, ultimately the rising didn't put James back on the throne.
Yeah.
James Seton was made an outlaw for what he'd done.
Oh, no.
Because he had supported the rebellion. He managed to escape to France and actually died out there in 1694.
Oh, fair play.
But James didn't have an heir. So he didn't have anyone he could pass down his property fortune to. But even if he had, chances are they wouldn't have gotten it without a fight.
Yeah, because he was outlawed.
Yes, he was made an outlaw, so all of his estates were considered forfeit.
Yes.
Because he's an outlaw.
Mm-hmm.
So Fyvie actually returned to the crown again.
Ah, there we go. Ready to be redistributed to somebody else.
Exactly.
Oh.
Sorry.
Do you think anyone ever asked him while he was in France, just like, oh, hey man, you seem really upset. What's eating you?
If they did, I hope they punched him directly in the face. Straight in the chops.
That's if someone were to say that, that's what
like
you'd
a
hope would
cartoon
happen.
boxing match. Just boom, boom.
So now that I've totally derailed you.
Yep. As I said, James was the last Earl of Dunfermline because he was stripped of the title. It happens quite a lot that a title is just ended because the family has been disloyal.
Yep.
That's what happened here. If you're clever, you'll remember that I said there's another legend associated with Fyvie, all tangled up with Lilius's story.
Yes.
Even though it doesn't seem to actually be about her. We're getting to it now.
Okay. Back into the spooks.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I can't handle it.
If it's a bit much, we won't do this again.
Oh, I can't like it.
So one of the stories linked to Lilius is that she was starved to death by her husband. Like I said, because he wanted to remarry in hopes that he would get a son. In this story, quote, one of the ladies of Dunfermline, unquote, which I'm taking to mean one of the Earls of Dunfermline's wives, because there were several who lived at Fyvie.
Yep.
In this story, one of the ladies of Dunfermline was locked in one of the rooms at the castle.
Interesting.
At the top of the big staircase in the middle of Fyvie.
That'd be the best place to lock someone up.
Most dramatic.
Yeah.
Again, this is kind of tricky because I'm fairly certain the current staircase didn't exist the way that it does now.
Oh, okay.
Because the castle's changed a lot over time.
Yeah.
It's confusing. But this lady was locked away in this room for reasons unclear. We don't really know what happened. But when her family tried to come for her, the legend says that they were all murdered as they made their way up the stairs.
Oh, shit.
By the people guarding her.
Yeah.
And the lady of Dunfermline had to watch as the bodies of her beloved family were thrown out of a window.
Oh, no.
Falling to the ground below.
Rough.
So what this woman saw drove her mad with grief and terror, and she was kept in this room until she died.
I can see why it got confused.
Right? Do you see the similarities?
Yeah.
I think this is why people say this is Lilius.
Yep.
Even though it doesn't seem to be. After Lilius died, her family came to visit Fyvie and her husband, and I don't think they would have done that had this happened to her. There's a point that Sue Coburn makes as well, that they were quite friendly. And I think Lilius' children, her daughters all made good marriages. So if she had been treated that way, her daughters wouldn't have been looked after so well.
Yes.
But you see the similarities between the two.
Yeah, absolutely.
This room, which now does exist at the top of this staircase, gets referred to as the ghost room and the murder room.
The murder room.
Yes.
Nice. Hope you can't sleep in that room if you can rent it out or anything.
Well, it is a bedroom. People have slept in there. It's got lots of wood paneling in it. But if you look at the floor as you wander around, you'll notice some ominous stains.
Oh, God.
Dark stains.
No.
Dare I say, blood stains.
Oh. Would keep for a long time.
How much wood would a woodchuck?
Yeah, where is it? A wood stain would remain for a long time.
A blood stain.
Yeah, but one on wood as opposed to on carpet.
Oh, so not wood stain.
No, I hate myself sometimes. You know what I mean.
If wood gets stained, it would linger.
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
This is why Eilidh leads the episodes.
So yeah, people have stayed in this room and people have noticed this ominous stain on the floor. And this is part of the reason I want to talk about Fyvie so much, because the stories are one thing, but I really enjoy that I get to wait till the end and then I can go, there's actually something there that kind of proves it.
Yeah.
Which makes everything way more uncertain.
Oh, gross.
We'll talk about it more later, because the people who have stayed in the murder room have heard really strange things when no one else is around.
Oh no.
Sorrowful sighs, footsteps coming when they couldn't see anyone. And in a move that sounds like it's come straight out of The Conjuring, one person even had their lit candle blown out on them.
Oh.
Leaving them in complete darkness. And no one else was there.
Oh no. I'd always claim wind, for getting a candle blown out, but super creepy regardless.
It would be very scary.
Yeah.
So this is supposedly one of the ladies of Dunfermline, which is why I bring it up now.
Yes.
Because this is the end of the Dunfermlines.
This has brought them to a close.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's dead spooky.
Right?
Imagine you were sleeping in that bedroom and you're just lying in bed, but it's a really bright moon. Your curtains aren't very good, so it's kind of illuminated, and you're just staring at this blood stain on the floor, tucked up in bed, because you wouldn't be able to not look at it if you spotted it in the dark.
What if you started hearing dripping?
Oh, that'd be grim.
It's pretty creepy.
It is pretty creepy. Very creepy.
Back to James's forfeit of the estate and Fyvie's history.
Yes.
The castle stayed with the crown for quite a long time after James lost it. It wasn't until 1733 that the purchase of Fyvie was finalised by William Gordon, who was the second Earl of Aberdeen.
Okay.
Now, before becoming the Earl of Aberdeen, William was actually known as Lord Haddo.
Of Haddo House?
Yes.
Ah.
We've made an extra episode about Haddo House if you're interested over on Patreon. William is the one who built it.
Interesting.
So we have talked about him before.
Yeah. And now he's bought Fyvie.
He's bought Fyvie. In 1733.
Cool. So did he buy it off the crown?
Yeah. Now, buying Fyvie was a condition of his marriage to his third wife. He had to buy it.
Interesting condition.
As a heads up, this is kind of similar to Alexander Seton's marriages.
Yeah.
Just so you know. William's first two wives had died, and he decided he was going to marry Lady Anne Gordon, who was the daughter of the Duke of Gordon.
Okay.
So this is a different branch of Gordons.
I was about to ask.
But they did have the same surname.
Yes.
Anne was 16 when she got married in 1729. William was 50.
Ugh.
It's so gross.
Just gives you the ick.
It's awful. Now, Anne's father didn't have a problem with marrying her off when she was 16, but he did have a problem with ensuring that she was going to be well provided for.
Uh-huh.
He insisted that William buy Fyvie Castle and then ensure that the castle would be passed down to any children that William and Anne had had together.
Oh, yeah.
Because he'd been married before.
I see, yep.
So he's trying to safeguard his family's future.
Yes.
But still happy to marry off his teenage daughter to an old man.
Yes. For the good of the family.
Ugh. He didn't actually live long enough to see them get married. He died before it actually went through. But William honoured the agreement they had reached. He still bought Fyvie.
Yes.
And it was promised to he and Anne's children.
Nice.
Does that make sense?
That does make sense. And if he has Haddo House, or had Haddo House built, he doesn't need it, for his own.
No, he's an earl.
Yeah.
He has a lot of money and a lot of prestige.
So all his many children from his many wives can, in theory, be taken care of.
Yeah. William died in 1745.
It's a very notable year.
Mm-hmm. It seems like he was a Jacobite. So there is an argument that it was kind of a good thing that he died before he could commit to the cause.
I was just about to say the same thing. It's well, at least he didn't have to live to see that through.
Well, he would have lost everything if he had committed to being a Jacobite.
Lost everything for his entire family, too.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a weird, saving grace from that, isn't there?
Yeah, you see what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I hope I'm not being cruel. He died in 1745. It was William and Anne's eldest son that inherited Fyvie.
Yep.
According to the agreement of their marriage. He was also called William, but he became a general later in life, so I'm going to call him General William.
I like it.
To differentiate. He was only 9 when his dad died.
No.
So his mum, Anne, took on a lot of responsibility when it came to Fyvie.
Mm-hmm.
She kind of had to look after it herself because General William wasn't old enough to do it. A lot when you consider that the Rising was in full swing.
Yes.
There's a lot of disruption and uncertainty, and she's holding the fort herself.
Oh, that's tough.
Anne's brother had enthusiastically joined the Jacobites. He was very vocal in his support of them.
Uh-huh.
It's a little bit of a tangent, but he was called Lewis Gordon, and he was so enthusiastic that he did wonders for Jacobite recruitment.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he would go around and he was the one, like one of the main ones who was bringing people onto the cause and getting them to actually join and fight. He was so good for recruitment that the government side invested a lot of time and energy into trying to capture him so that he would stop convincing everyone to join.
Wow. I love hearing about passionate people. That's fantastic.
And he was a good talker. It's one thing to be passionate, but he was also very persuasive.
Mm-hmm. Very nice.
So yeah, they were trying very hard to bring him in because everyone was becoming Jacobites that he spoke to.
This fucking optimism machine just storming about the country.
Mm-hmm. At one point, he actually stayed with Anne at Fyvie.
Oh, yeah.
Which must have been a bit nervy for her because she has her son to protect.
Right enough. But maybe she just comes out the other end so jazzed about the Jacobites she doesn't mind.
I mean, maybe. So Lewis had stayed at Fyvie.
Mm-hmm.
But in April 1746, it wasn't the Jacobites that came through and stayed at Fyvie. It was the Duke of Cumberland and his men.
That's not what you want when it's your brother who was their prior most wanted number one.
Yes. I misspoke there. They didn't stay at Fyvie, but they did march through.
Uh-huh.
Because they were on their way north. This was them on the road to Culloden at this point.
Ooh. Now, I was just thinking, I feel like Fyvie Castle is far enough east to avoid a lot of the major conflicts. Because in my head, they were more like central and west, but apparently not.
Well, no conflict happened here. They're marching through.
Oh, well, that's true.
They're on the road to war.
Yeah.
General William, Anne's son, the young laird, he was apparently completely enthralled at the sight of the soldiers.
Wow.
Completely taken with them. And, he's 9.
Uh-huh.
Anne apparently struck such an attractive figure that the Duke of Cumberland noticed her immediately, even in all of her mourning attire. And he came over to talk to them personally.
Whew.
Obviously, that's what men do. Pretty lady. Going to see if I have a chance there.
Yep. Oh, morning, is she? Well, we'll see if we can change your mind on that.
No, don't worry. Don't worry about it. It doesn't even matter. Don't worry.
Do you want the answer to all your problems? My dick.
The Duke stopped and he asked her who she was, wanting to get to know her better, see if she's free to go for coffee, Anne replies, and this is what she says. I'm the sister of Lewis Gordon.
Holy shit. Oh, bold as brass.
Mm-hmm.
Damn.
Because obviously he knew who Lewis Gordon was. They all did.
Yeah.
It was a risk, but I fucking love her for it.
I know, right? Oh.
Brilliant. It's so ballsy.
So, do we know what he replied?
Well, surprisingly, the Duke loved it. Because it was bold.
Yeah.
So, I think he kind of accepted he wasn't going to get in there. But he produced an orange, like the fruit, and handed it to young General William. Mm-hmm. Now, this was, kids today wouldn't really be moved up or down, but this was a big deal in 1746 because oranges were rare in Scotland.
That's what my thought was. Like, where the hell did he get an orange from?
Right? He had access to them because they were a symbol of the Hanoverian cause. Because he was William of Orange.
William of Orange.
But they were pretty rare. He gave him the orange. He gave the young boy the orange, and said, "Well then, I can only hope that your son will one day prove as loyal an adherent of the House of Hanover as your brother has been of the House of Stuart."
Oh, well played. He's not my favourite person by any means, but Very classy.
He kind of took it with a bit of grace. He wasn't heavy-handed at this point. Remember, he didn't have the Butcher moniker at this time. This was after Culloden. But he took it with a bit of grace. Game recognizes game. I feel like.
I mean, he recognised it's not her fault for having a brother.
Well, Anne and General William hadn't done anything wrong.
Yep.
Lewis was the official Jacobite. But yeah, what do you think of that?
It's pretty cool. I do quite like that. As much as I hate liking anything about the Duke of Cumberland, I do enjoy that.
I love that she said that.
Yes.
I admire her so much for that.
Oh, I wouldn't have been so ballsy.
Like, just... I can't imagine just sticking your neck out like that.
I know. Very much sticking your neck out.
Right.
Oh.
Lewis actually fought at Culloden a few days later, and he survived the battle, but it seems like he was taken prisoner, according to records. But he managed to escape.
Oh, well.
He died in France in 1754, so just a few years later, which I think would have made him only about 30, because he was recruiting for the Jacobites when he was about 21. He was a really young guy.
Yeah. I like to think he escaped by just charming who was ever supposed to be looking after him.
Probably. Or just having lots of friends.
Well, that's true.
Who are willing to go on a limb to get him out. And we know what happened to the Duke of Cumberland.
Yes. Turned into a sausage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As you might expect, with everything that had happened, young General William was very taken with seeing all the soldiers and being addressed by the Duke of Cumberland himself.
That would be very influential.
And William actually went on to become a firm supporter of the Hanoverians.
Did he?
He did, yeah.
Damn.
Just like the Duke had hoped. He served George II and then George III after him.
Oh, there you go.
And he went on to become a general. Like I said, he was an army man.
Well, yeah, as a thought, if you want to become an army man, you're not going to become a Jacobite 10 years after Culloden, are you, once he's old enough?
No, but this is why he wanted to become an army man.
Yes, I'm with you. I was surprised he joined that army, but there's not any other army he could join, is there?
No, that was wildly illegal.
Yeah, so, yeah, very cool.
He became a groom of the bedchamber, which was a quite prestigious title, in 1775, which I think basically meant he was kind of a diplomat.
Okay.
He would negotiate on the king's behalf for things. When I looked up what it meant, I actually read that George III's mental health declined. He was Mad King George, I think. He retired to Windsor Castle later in life, and several of his grooms of the bedchamber went with him to look after him.
Interesting.
They stayed at Windsor with him. So you were a trusted man if you were a groom of the bedchamber.
Yeah. So strange, because you're so important, but also kind of a servant.
Yeah. Well, ultimately, that's what you are. You're a servant of the king.
Yeah.
In 1778, General William had the Gordon Tower built at Fyvie.
Ah.
That's number 4 or 5.
Yep.
If you're keeping count.
Oh, so he kept the Gordon name then, rather than taking his dad's name. I thought his mum was one of the Gordons.
They both were. They both had the surname Gordon.
Oh, yeah, but from different... Yep, okay, never mind.
That's why his uncle was Lewis Gordon.
I assumed it was her brother.
He was, that's what I'm saying. They were both Gordon.
Yes. That's why I got confused.
He was Gordon squared. He had Gordon Tower built because he was twice the Gordon of a normal man. Although towards the end of his life, he kind of stopped keeping up with the maintenance of Fyvie.
Oh, yeah.
So by the time we get to the 1800s, the castle wasn't in a great state. It was a bit neglected. When it came to romance, General William's story is kind of unique.
Oh, yeah?
Especially given how the story usually goes with the wealthy landed gentry. In 1776, a woman named Isabel Black, a servant at Fyvie Castle, had a son called William.
Okay.
Want to take a guess at what happened?
Was there perhaps a little bit of hanky-panky?
Just a smidge. General William and Isabel had been spending time together outside of wedlock. And this baby William was General William's son.
Damn.
But he was illegitimate. They hadn't married. When little William was 33,
Okay.
General William bought a nearby estate called Mary Coulter.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems that he bought it so that Isabel and his son would have somewhere to live, since there was no chance of him inheriting Fyvie.
Yep.
So he bought this for them.
That's nice.
Unfortunately, Isabel took a good deal of the brunt of ill feeling about her romance with General William.
Yep.
Because patriarchy, misogyny, you know how it goes.
All that good stuff.
She kind of struggled to fit in anywhere once word got round that William was the general's son.
Oh, I see.
She couldn't fit in with the other staff at Fyvie anymore because they felt that she was getting special treatment.
Uh-huh.
And they didn't like it. But she was never accepted by the general's peers either.
No.
Even though his son was her son, because they viewed her as beneath them.
Yes.
Because she was the staff.
Well, that sucks, doesn't it?
So she never really comfortably fit in after that.
Uh-huh.
However, not long before General William's death, he and Isabel got married.
Oh. Well, that's nice. Didn't see that coming.
Right? I don't have a specific date, but it was definitely later in life for them both.
Oh.
General William died in 1816 when he was 80, and Isabel died in 1824 when she was 80.
Wow. It's so surprising to hear people in their just reaching into their 80s so long ago.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, they got married.
Oh, well, that's nice.
But there was a spooky thing
Oh,
that happened during General William's time at Fyvie, if you'd care to hear it.
I would love to hear it.
Because it also includes Isabel.
Okay.
It seems that General William tried to get into the hidden chamber at the bottom of Meldrum Tower.
Oh, I was waiting for the chamber to come back
Remember
around.
that?
I do.
The cursed chamber that the laird isn't supposed to enter, because if he does, he'll die and his wife will go blind.
Don't need either of those things.
General William tried to get in at some point, and before she died, Isabel went blind.
Oh, shit.
Just like the curse said that she would.
Interesting.
And William died first.
Yeah. I mean, she got to 80 years old. It's not entirely surprising that she went blind.
No, obviously, that is somewhat the natural order of things.
Yes.
But interesting, because he tried it, and that's what happened.
He tried it. Pretty spooky.
It isn't clear if this happened during his attempt to get into the chamber.
Mm-hmm.
But at some point in the 1800s, a strange stone was discovered in the Meldrum Tower dressing room.
Okay.
It's one of the rooms in the tower. According to Sue Coburn's book, it, quote, worked on a pivot, unquote.
What does that mean?
I think it means it spun.
Oh, yeah.
And when it was moved, it revealed a hole that no one could see to the bottom of.
Well, that's unusual.
And this stone was directly above the cursed chamber.
Oh. Has somebody maybe tried to tunnel their way in?
Intriguing, no?
Very intriguing.
So when this was discovered, some investigation started happening, although no walls were torn down to try and get access to this chamber. They were just working with the hole that was already there. Pennies were thrown in, and they timed how long it took for them to hit the bottom.
Yep, nice.
And a carpenter's tool tied to a piece of string was lowered until it touched what was thought to be the floor of the chamber, according to Sue Coburn.
I like it.
And they realised this was a long way down. So even with this curse, people are still trying to make their way in.
Yeah. Well, at that point, like, well, it's already been opened, so it's not us that's opening it, so we won't get the curse, you know?
And I'm not sure if this happened during General William's tenure. I just know what happened during the 1800s, which suggests that it was.
Yes. I like to think that if it fell somewhat into disrepair, he obviously wasn't there very often, which if he was a high up in the army and stuff, he would be elsewhere.
Well, but they also spent a lot of their time at Mary Coulter. It seemed like he wanted to be with Isabel and his son.
Well, that's nice. So, you know, there would be a lot of time for the staff there just to be like, so have you thrown anything into that hole? Maybe a couple of stones just to see what happened.
How many fingers am I holding up? Shut up.
So, you know, they're just getting a bit more brazen about looking in there because there's no one to tell them off, so to speak.
That's true.
I know there's still going to be someone in charge of the estate, but it's not the laird who might be most upset since it's a curse against the laird.
Well, and he's the one who could sack you.
That as well.
Although I guess the head of the house could probably do that too.
Probably. Imagine they had that power to hire, fire, and perspire.
Don't you hate corporate speak? So yeah, the general tried to break into the cursed chamber
Naughty.
and his wife went blind.
It's what you get. It's what you get.
But we are going to have a chat about General William's son when we pick up next time.
Oh, okay, okay. Do we... Oh, he's William as well, isn't he?
Yes. Young William.
Young William, son of General William.
Yes.
General William Gordon.
Who was very recently made legitimate.
Oh, so does that still count?
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
We're going to talk about it.
Oh, I'm excited to hear it. Back for part 3. Well, thank you very much for being here, listeners at home.
Thank you for listening.
We hope you're enjoying this saga through Fyvie Castle.
Let us know what you think about having the spooks throughout the episode.
Yeah.
Very curious to hear what you think.
Mm-hmm. I recently learned that if you listen on Spotify, there's like a box with a Q&A and you can rate his messages in there that we can then like show up on Spotify.
Interesting.
So you can drop your answer right in there. If you would like to support the Generally Spooky History podcast, consider signing up for our Patreon for all the awesome extra content you get over there, as well as to chat with all the awesome people who are over there.
Everyone on Patreon is so nice.
So nice. You can leave us a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. And if you have a friend you think would like it, consider sending them an episode and asking them to listen.
You know they're going to love it.
You know they're going to love it.
You know.
Mm-hmm. And of course, you can buy your merch at generallyspooky.com. Otherwise, we'll see you back for part 3 next week. Bye.
Bye.